All right. Professor Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, also joins us on the program. Professor Nalapat, while Donald Trump has called us a friend first, and then he's imposed 25% tariffs on India, and the reasons which have been highlighted in that particular post are to the tune that India is buying energy and weapons from Russia. So what's your overall assessment of this rather not thought out move by Donald Trump?
I'd like to say, Vineet, that I think the U.S. defense industry is very upset that so many orders are going elsewhere. They're going to France, they're going to Russia, and the problem is they're very high priced. And another problem is that there are multiple limitations sometimes. So you buy something from the US, then some sanctions come, primary, secondary, the companies have to obey that. So we have, for example, our Air Force has been waiting for an aircraft for a long time. But the reality, the US supplier so far has not delivered. So that is a problem. I'd like to say that President Trump should be given the highest medal by both Russia and China. The highest civilian honor should be given to him for a simple reason. After basically creating a storm in US EU ties, and remember, transatlantic alliance, even though it's not the age of the Atlantic, is still very important. And European Union countries are not amused. They're not very happy, to put it mildly, at the way Trump more or less forced a trade deal on them. He's trying to use this tactic to force India to open up its agricultural sector to surplus food from the US. The fact is, US farmers have got a surplus. But the point is, Indian agriculture is too precious. If we have any problem with Indian agriculture, any interference with our with seeds, for example, including use of genetically modified seeds, well, then we'll have a serious problem with 1.4 billion people to feed. And Donald Trump is not really going to worry if those people die of starvation. So, but obviously the Prime Minister is worried. So my point is very simple. I mean, if Donald Trump wants to make an enemy out of India, well, let him do so. But I can tell you there are some issues on which India will not compromise. For example, it's pharma. You have excellent Indian pharma, generic pharma, and they could lower the cost of healthcare in the United States significantly. But if Donald Trump imposes some kind of a tariff on them, well, who's going to pay? The American consumer is going to pay. Eventually, all these tariffs are going to hit back on the US and the US consumer. And Trump will definitely lose more and more support. I think, frankly, this is really, as you said, a very ill thought out move. And Trump acknowledges we are an important partner and then slaps us in the face. Is that what you do to an important partner? Do you shove somebody when you're supposed to be a good friend? I'm sorry, but in the opinion of many people in India, the US is not a reliable ally anymore so long as Trump is president. I'm not yet a Trump skeptic, but the reality is I've seen people in Europe, I've seen people in India who believe the US is not a reliable partner at all. And all Donald Trump is doing is to help them in that belief by giving them ample grounds for basically saying, look, we told you so. So frankly, this is a way of pressure tactics, but I don't think this government will bend to that kind of pressure. And if he wants to impose tariffs, so be it. Let him do so. And let him remember that when an Indo-Pacific situation comes, he is imposing tariffs on the one country, apart from Japan, which can be of immense help to the United States in the Indo-Pacific, in securing the Indo-Pacific. I think people need to, around him, need to give a reality check.
There was also,
Uh,
sorry to interject, sir, but there were also talks about an FTA between the two countries. What happens to that?
Look, first of all, I'd like to say they would love to have an FTA, but the reality situation is it cannot include certain products like agriculture and farm products. The US farmer will simply dump agriculture products on India. Now we have all seen what happens when China has dumped manufactured products on India, on the US, and so many countries. Their own manufacturing sector has been hollowed out at the expense of China. So we are not going to compromise on agriculture. We are not going to compromise on important items of concern to the US consumer, that is pharma. And in my view, I think a campaign needs to be launched by friends of India-US partnership, not of course by the Indian government. They should not be involved. About pointing out how harmful this step is for U.S. interests. So if you add the Epstein saga, you add all this together, frankly, it's a deadly cocktail. And I would request the people in the White House to consider, and before the deadline comes, to basically ensure that this kind of threat is withdrawn, because frankly, bullying and threats are not something that a self-respecting nation can take kindly to, and certainly not India under Prime Minister Modi. Thank you, Vinny.
Absolutely right, sir. Well articulated. Dr. Sergey Dvoryan.